From the food we eat, the air we breathe, the land we dwell, to the health of our body and mind and the well-being of all things in the universe. Unlock the science with Chula Radio Plus.
Welcome to Unlock the Science. I'm Nattawin. Have you found your drinking tap water tastes a bit brackish lately? Since the beginning of 2021, more than half of Bangkok population are turning their tap's water on to find that their water supply has unpleasant salty taste. According to Metropolitan Water Works Authority, or MWA, which is the state-owned agency that supplies tap water for people in the capital and its suburban areas, the saltiness in Bangkok drinking tap water is caused by intrusion of salt water from the Gulf of Thailand into Chao Phraya River, the major lifeblood of Thailand, due to the lower flow of the river during dry seasons. Because Thailand still does not equip with the technology to filter out saline during tap water production, if salt water from the Gulf of Thailand intrudes far enough into the river, reaches the main raw water pumping station known as Samlae Station in Pathum Thani province in the northern suburb of Bangkok, and causing the salinity level at this station to rise above the salinity standard for tap water production at 0.5 gram per liter. Half the areas of Bangkok metropolis on the east bank of Chao Phraya River, which are using water from this water pumping station, will eventually be affected by salty tap water. While Department of Health under Ministry of Public Health has ensured that consuming salty tap water is adding up only a little more salt intake to our body, and there is no imminent threat to healthy people. Doctors have warned that this is not the case for everyone. A small amount of salt from salty drinking water can be harmful to the health of certain groups of vulnerable people, including infants, elderly, and those who have heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes, and hypertension. Although Bangkok has repeatedly suffered from this problem once every few years, data from the Water Quality Monitoring System of Royal Irrigation Department reveals that the current saltwater intrusion problem in Bangkok is far worse than any other years. Since 2019, Bangkok has repeatedly suffered from severe salinity intrusion for 3 years in a row. Records show that during January and February 2021, the salinity level in Chao Phraya River almost always stay above the recommended standard of 0.5 gram per liter. It was also found that at the end of January 2021, the salinity level at Samlae water pumping station soared to as high as 2.53 grams per liter, or 5 times higher than the recommended standard, breaking a new record for the highest salinity level ever measured at this station since 2007. Up until March 2021, the salinity level at the Samlae station, nearly 100 kilometers away from the sea, is still concerningly high. As there is not enough storage water in the upstream dams to push back salt water, Bangkokians have to wait until the rain returns later in the year, so the salinity will drop to a normal level. High salinity level in Chao Phraya River is not only affecting tap water production, but could also harm agriculture produce and manufacturing industries. A salinity level that is above 2 grams per liter is damaging to plants, while salty tap water is also destructive to metal parts and machineries. This issue is not limited to Bangkok metropolis and Chao Phraya River alone, but it is a widespread problem throughout the coastal areas of Thailand, with even severer impacts and lesser public awareness on the problem. For instance, the saltwater has intruded far greater inland, into Bangkok River, the major bloodline for the eastern region of Thailand, for over 115 kilometers from the delta, with the salinity level up to 7.34 gram per liter, or almost 15 times higher than the recommended level. As the situation of saltwater intrusion and salty tap water shows no sign to be resolved soon, today we are welcoming Dr. Nattawin Chawaloesphonsiya, an environmental engineer from Faculty of Engineering, Chulalongkorn University. Unlock the Sign reporter, Prat Ruchi Wanarom, talks to him to further discuss the detail of this situation.
Okay, Dr. Nattawin, what is the current situation of saltwater intrusion and when can we expect that the problem will be resolved?
Okay. In fact, we are currently in the period where the saltwater intrusion is highest of this year. It is expected at first that we will have two periods where the saltwater intrusion will be very strong. The first is during the early of February, and the second one during the middle of February until middle of March. So I think there will be a lot of factors affecting the situation. So it's quite difficult to predict when this saltwater intrusion situation will be relieved. But normally, because some of the factors is related to the quantity of rain, so it could be predict that maybe during the rainy season the problem of the saltwater intrusion could be relieved. But maybe it's quite fortunate for us because it is predict from many experts that maybe this year the rainy season could come earlier than expect. So I think it is safe to say that maybe the first rain could be during the late of April, which is quite, I think it is earlier because normally for the rainy season it starts from May. So it could expect maybe at the end of April the saltwater intrusion could not have any effects on the tap water quality.
As we have noticed that the current saltwater intrusion is far more severe than previous years. What are the driving factors behind this current phenomenon, and why this year's saltwater intrusion is so grave?
I think, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of factors affecting this situation. But at first, I think everyone have to know that this saltwater intrusion could be the most severe in 10 years. So I think since 2010 to this day, this year have the most, maybe the most severe of the saltwater intrusion come from many factors. The first factor is come from the global phenomena on the climate change and also the El Nino phenomenon. The second one is come from the drought problem because I think many one have noticed that we are in the period where I think maybe 3 years already that we have maybe under average rainfall. So the water storage in the system is quite short. So that affect a lot on saltwater intrusion because normally we need water from the irrigation and for the system to push the saltwater and avoid the intrusion. So when we don't have enough water, so there are a lot of problems on the saltwater intrusion. And the last thing is when we have not enough or insufficient water, but we still have high demand of water from many activities due to the economic drive. So these three altogether come to the effects on the highest saltwater intrusion of this year.
Apart from suspect health threat from drinking salty tap water, what is the other problem that saltwater intrusion can cause?
So the first sector that have a lot of problems from the saltwater intrusion is agriculture. So during the high salinity period or very high saltwater intrusion, there's a lot of problems on crops. For example, there are some reports suggesting that durian in Nonthaburi, that is one area of that affects from the saltwater intrusion, they have some problems on the growing of the fruit. That is the first sector. And second sector is on industry. Because normally for the industry, they need high quality water to do for their process, especially for the cooling process. for making the water to the cooling water that have to strictly control the ions content in water. So in case that we have high salinity in tap water, that is raw water, to produce the cooling water, the problems come to the process because the process have to receive higher loading and could have some effects. If the industry, they will not adjust or adapt the process to counter this situation, there will have a lot of problem in the cooling process because there will be a lot of scaling inside, and that could come to the process failure. And the last thing, in the household level, apart from the health impact, we also thinking about there could be some damage from the salinity, because I think everyone know that in the high salinity condition, some metal parts could be damaged by the corrosion. So that will be another things that we think in the household level could have some effect from the high water salinity condition.
Okay. And how can we mitigate the current saltwater intrusion problem?
I think to mitigate this saltwater intrusion is quite difficult things. It have to think a lot, and maybe in the macro scale, because it have to deal with the infrastructure level. But I think if for the very short term, it's about individuals to how to manage the risks of the people or of the water usage to avoid the effect of the salt water. And I think for the middle term and long term, there could be some things that we need to discuss with each other, for the government, for the water authorities who produce water supply, and for the users or for of the people that use water. We need to make some decision altogether and give together to make sure that the future of the saltwater intrusion could not affect us.
As a citizen, how can we avoid the risk of consuming and using salty tap water?
If we still have to use tap water to produce the drinking water for daily life, we can have some tricks, right? Like we can store the water during the low salinity period. Highest salinity of tap water can be found during the afternoon. So from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. is maybe the most or the peak salinity. So in case that we need to store that water for the drinking water production, we can avoid that period. So maybe we can store our water during the morning and using that one to make sure that we still have some low salinity water. And the last one, in case that we have the process for the water purification in household, we can use some technology for the so-called RO, or the reverse osmosis. This is maybe the only one process right now in the commercial one that can be used household to remove sodium chloride and remove salinity from water to make sure that the water that we uptake or drink every day is safe.
We will take a short break now.
You are listening to Unlock the Science on Chula Radio Plus.
The recent acceleration of saltwater intrusion is not only limited to Thailand, but many coastal areas across the globe are also encountering with this happening. Assumptions have been made as the scientific community tries to explain this phenomenon, and the most prominent suspect is climate change. Reports from the World Bank have highlighted that the severity can be increasingly aggravated in the near future. As the global temperature continues to warm up, the saltwater intrusion is likely to become severer globally. This is causing imminent threat to millions of people who reside in the fertile river deltas and low-lying coastal areas, which are prone to saltwater intrusion. Creeping salinity due to rising seawater threatens to cause further shortage of fresh water for consumption and irrigation and harm the aquatic ecosystems. We have already seen some of the examples of this phenomenon in our neighboring countries. In February 2021, Vietnam News Agency VNA reported that Mekong River Delta in southern Vietnam has suffered severe saltwater intrusion problem due to drought and lower water discharge from upstream dams. The situation has resulted in extensive crops damages and caused drinking water shortage among large numbers of local populations. Unlocked Design reporter Prat Ruchiwanarom gets back to Dr. Nattawin Chawaloesphonsiya of Faculty of Engineering, Chulalongkorn University for more details about this issue.
Do you agree with the assessment of the World Bank that the warming of the Earth would exacerbate saltwater intrusion? And how do you think the problem will develop in the future?
I think individually I agree with this discussion because there's some evidence that climate change have effects on the saltwater intrusion. The first one is the sea level rise. I think everyone know that during the climate change or the global warming, there has a lot of ice on the polar that melt, and that affect the sea water level. So it could be safe to say that if we still increasing with this rate, the seawater level could be increased, and that affect a lot on the seawater intrusion. This is the first one. And the second one, during this year that we have maybe the most severe seawater intrusion in 10 years, it's come from one phenomena. It's called El Nino, that make the rainfall in Thailand is shorter than its average. And there is some evidence, scientific support that say that the El Nino damage could be more severe if the climate change develop in this direction. So that could be the problem, because if we have maybe stronger effect of the El Nino, we can have maybe the longer drought years. And that can come to the problems of the insufficient water for the eco and hydrological condition maintenance in the downstream.
What should we do to prepare and prevent saltwater intrusion problem in the long run?
Okay, I think for this question, I have to separate the mitigation to three parts. The first part is for the government, because the government have to plan for a long term how to mitigate or how to manage the saltwater intrusion. That I think it could be someday quite a normal problems. The first thing that they need to think about how to manage the water usage on the upstream. For example, right now we have a lot of the saltwater intrusion because we have high seawater level, and we also have high consumption of water on the upstream. Like in Chao Phraya River, that we have a lot of agricultural activities along the river. So in case that if we cannot manage the activities, so we will pull out the water from the system, and then the salt water can intrude maybe high inland. So in the future, if we can manage to make sure that we separate or do the good proportion between each sectors, agriculture, they can produce crops during their good season. They will not during off-season rise or something like that. So we can make sure that the water is still enough to maintain the condition downstream. This is the first one. And the second one, maybe the government would have to think how to find the second or maybe the reserve water supply to make sure that even in the very high or during the saltwater intrusion, there will still be a good raw water source that they can rely on. So maybe we need to think about how to find the other source, maybe come from another river. There is some plan think about using the rivers from Mekong River, because Mekong River is quite high comparing to Chao Phraya River, and they have quite smaller effects on the saltwater intrusion. So finding the new raw water source, and also moving their pumping station could be one key of things that they need to think about. For the waterworks, the authority need to think about how to adapt or how to apply the technology that right now is ready to use for removing the salinity from water. But I think because one limitation is about the cost and capital that they need to provide. So maybe it's about negotiation about the cost of the water production and water selling price that is affordable by many people and still have the good quality. And the last one for the user or the end user as us, maybe it's about the same thing that I already answered in the previous question about how to prevent the effects and how to provide like using the technology for the water purification in the household. And also maybe we can help by the water saving to make sure that we have enough water during the drought season and rainy season.
As an individual, what do you think we should do to help prevent the climate crisis?
So I think the relation between the saltwater intrusion and the climate crisis is quite clear. So, but it's not only the climate crisis that can come into equation when we think about the saltwater intrusion. As I said earlier, it's about the mitigation, how to avoid effects of the saltwater intrusion. But in case we want to prevent, it's another story. If we want to avoid the climate crisis, we need to use or consume energy effectively, because energy factor is one of the most part causing the global warming due to the carbon emission. And if we think, if we understand this too, the good water efficiency can reduce the effect of the climate, can reduce the cost of the climate crisis. Energy efficiency is also one another. And the last one, because when we talk about water, it's about food also. The one thing that we can help to reduce the climate crisis is on how we manage food effectively. So it's come from the food production that we need to use the water efficiently for the food production, and also individuals, for all of us, we can help preventing the climate crisis by reducing the food waste. Because I think this one is quite a little bit far from the saltwater intrusion, but it's quite very clear that right now for the food waste is account to around 10% of greenhouse gas emissions. So it means that if we manage food waste well, we can save water to growing it, and we also can reduce the effect of greenhouse gas emission from the food waste. So in the case that we understand the nexus between food, water, and energy, we can think about how can we manage this essential resource very well that can use to prevent the greenhouse gas emission to reduce the climate crisis. And they also is very useful to prevent or relieve the effect of saltwater intrusion in the future. So this is one thing that individuals have to know. And from this concept, we can think a lot how to behave. Like we have to use the water efficiency, less water efficiency by saving. We have to reduce our transportation. We have to manage the food waste very well, something like that. So it's come from the taking the concept, the understanding into action. That it could be key from the climate crisis relief and then for the saltwater intrusion in the future.
From a small hint of saltiness in Bangkokians drinking tap water, we have learned that the rising of global temperature can have profound impacts on the overall ecosystems, which can contaminate our drinking and irrigation water supplies with salinity. We have many means to cope with this problem, such as introducing reverse osmosis technology to filter drinking water, moving raw water pumping stations further upstream, or just wisely managing water supply to make sure that we have enough fresh water supply. We also need to consider the bigger picture of this problem. The delicate connectivity of all the things in the natural world is a clear reminder to us to be mindful of the consequences of our activities, or we will eventually suffer the consequence of our doing. The saltwater intrusion, whose cause at first seemed completely beyond our control, shows us that the human-driven climate change is a major contributing factor behind this problem. Similarly, as we are trying to find a way to safeguard our water security, The path we have to follow is also to take care of the environment as a whole. And this, we would like to mark the end of today's program. Unlock the Science would like to thank Dr. Nattawin Chawaloesphonsiya from Department of Environmental Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, Chulalongkorn University, for his insight on saltwater intrusion and climate change. I hope you enjoy our program. You can listen to Unlock the Science on Chula Radio Plus at FM 101.5 every Saturday from 1 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. You can also listen and follow us on our website, curadio.chula.ac.th, and our Facebook page. And our program is also available as podcast. See you again next Saturday. Have a nice day.
Unlock the Science is edited and produced by Sinfa Tunsarawut with Lawan Jirasuradate as the program host and co-producer.